Welcome to the New Frontiers. Today, I'm going to speak for a moment on the presidential race. I'm going to discuss the presidential election and how presidential primaries work, the possibility of Joe Biden stepping down, presidential immunity and the Supreme Court decision, and how all this affects the election. The Biden campaign doesn't need to convince people he can win. We're just past that now. He has to convince them that he has the cognitive ability to lead this country, and that is going to be a tough sell after this debate. Now, I'm just an ordinary, optimistic American, and I'm looking for leadership. If you agree with me, push that subscribe button. Let's get this show started.
Destiny. Destiny. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. 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 You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This past week, I took a challenging climb on Mount Whitney via the Mountaineers route. Most of this climb wasn't technical, but there was this one part where I had to secure myself with a harness and a helmet and rope myself into the mountain. It was one of those moments at a near vertical slope with my fingers gripping some small nub on the mountain, standing on some small crevice, trying to step up to the next place. As I leaned my head back to look up, I realized that I'd forgotten to tighten the upper strap on my backpack. Well, as that weight shifted backwards, it pulled me away from the mountain. At this moment, I admit, with all the things going on in my life, that the only person that I could think about was myself. How do I get my grip back on that mountain? How do I ensure that I don't lose my footing even though I was roped in it? I had this feeling that I was in a struggle for my life. And then I heard my guide's voice above me saying, "I got you." It was enough. I thought about it afterwards, and I realized that many Americans feel like that almost every day. They're just hanging on for dear life. They're hoping that the ropes will hold them. They're also looking for that person who's above them that says, "I gotcha." What we saw with Joe Biden in the debate was a man who could no longer say that. You see, the idea of "I gotcha," it's based on trust. It's that voice above you that calms you down, that helps you get your bearings. One that eliminates your panic so that you can focus on the things that you need to do. But without trust, that voice means nothing. Now, as for Donald Trump, well, I watched the events of January 6th along with many other Americans. I saw the horror of a police officer's face squeezed in the door, the bench that was being used as a rampart through the window. We witnessed U.S. officers scrambling to protect Congress. I, along with many other Americans, heard the president's comment that incited these acts on the day that a peaceful transfer of power was supposed to happen. We heard and we saw with our own eyes him put pressure on Mike Pence to overturn the election. It was a moment that many Americans lost trust in him forever. He will never again be that voice above Americans that can say, "I got you." I suppose he could get that trust back if he was accountable for what happened, if he took responsibility for his actions, if maybe even he apologized. But the one thing we can trust in Donald Trump is he'll never do any of that. Instead, what we know is that he's going to lie to us. He's going to lie to us as if it never even happened. Or we can't trust him, not because of his lawsuits and 34 felony convictions, but because we saw with our own eyes what he did. And now we watch him as he continues to lie to us. Now, the problem that stands out with the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity is large. It seems to me that it will be interpreted in the future that those actions of Trump on January 6th would be immune for prosecution any future president. An action that, had he been successful, would have been an overthrow of a free election. We don't know that they will be successful at the overthrow, but what we do know is that one candidate was willing to try. It makes this election more important, not because we believe He would, but because we saw with our own eyes his willingness to try. Now, Joe Biden's problem today, we saw with our own eyes in the debate. Those of us who have had mothers and fathers who got into those older years, and we had to go through the pain of taking their driver's license away from them, we understand how difficult it is to deal with the humility that oftentimes comes with old age. To hear Joe Biden, the White House, his staff, his supporters, and his family tell us that this was just an hour and a half of a bad debate, we know that you're lying to us. And now you're losing our trust as well. This is doing real damage to you, but it's also doing real damage to our country. Stop. I don't know if you can replace Joe Biden and that if you do, you'll win. Seems to me that winning is going to be an uphill battle no matter what. But I'm 100% positive that Joe Biden is at the stage in life where he is going to have more bad days than he has good days. It's clear to me you're going to have to continue to cover it up, and that at some point, that problem is going to become a disaster. It'll be a disaster because you will not be able to convince the American public to do the right thing because they won't trust you about what the right thing really is. There are big issues going on in the world. The American world order is being threatened by China, and Russia, and Iran. Here at home, that order is being challenged by the alt-right and the radical left. It was challenged in Charlottesville, again on January 6th, and then it was challenged on October 7th on college campuses across the country. We need a leader who can inspire us, who has at least a fighting chance to build trust with us. Look, I'm no Kamala fan, but at this point, even she would have a better chance than Biden at delivering on this promise. If you don't do this, you're going to lose the presidency by a landslide. You're going to lose the House and the Senate as well, and you're going to give Trump control over everything. Now, the reason that you're going to lose it is because we recognize you don't have us. Now, you might be able to say to Joe Biden that you got him, but you won't be able to say that to us. You don't have us unless you're willing to change courses. You'll be giving up the trust of the American people. If Trump is the threat that you say he is, well, then it's time to stand up. If you don't, then 3 years from now, when you're complaining about losing the government to a tyrant, you need to look in the mirror and take responsibility. If congressional leaders won't do it, well, then I'm hoping that delegates will. Look, I'm an independent today, but I have been involved in several presidential campaigns, and 3 times I've been a delegate. We don't have direct elections in the United States. On the presidential side, we have this presidential primary held separately in each state. The state, then, or the party in the state, allocates delegates based upon the vote to each candidate. Biden is going into this convention with over 4,000 delegates. These delegates are pledged, but they're not committed. They can vote against their nominee, but they need a good reason. Well, if the debate hasn't shown them a good reason, I'm not sure any ever exists. If half of those votes did vote against him, that would throw us into an open convention. But my real hope today is to make a plea to Joe Biden. You know, I was asked by your local representatives to come on board. They were trying to show how they'd gained support from the debate. And somehow or another, I ended up on your list. I could not, in good conscience, say yes. It is a mistake, Joe, to go forward with you as the nominee. This is a hard thing to say for a climber. It's a hard thing to say for many Americans. Let go, Joe. Cut yourself loose and save the rest of America tethered to that same rope. It doesn't guarantee everyone else's survival, but it increases their chance. I know it's not easy, but it's the bravest thing you can do. And it is the type of bravery that in American history creates heroes. You and I, and many other Americans, share faith in God. This is one of those times that you have to have faith that the Almighty is down below. And if you make the right decisions for the right reasons, you cut yourself loose. He's going to be there. He's got you.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier, the frontier of unknown opportunities and perils. It holds out the promise of more sacrifice instead of more security. The new frontier is here.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.